Tonight, we'll investigate whether it's science or pseudoscience. But first, I'd like the assistance of a gentleman, someone with a good wristwatch. Let's take a look at this good-looking bunch over here. May I see, what have you got in the way of a wristwatch? Oh, no, too cheap. That one's far too expensive. Oh, that one would be fine, sir. Would you join me over here on the floor? You can come over and stand on the star spot with me. Would you be kind enough to take that wristwatch off your wrist? Now, this watch says, I believe, about 2 minutes past 9, which agrees with my watch, right? Now, I want you to open up your hand like that, if you would, please, flat. The clean one would be better, I think, yeah. Oh, that one's clean enough. All right, put the finger of your other hand on the back of it like that. Excellent. Now we're going to concentrate. You must help me on this. Now, I don't have to make the noises, but the magic circle likes it, you see. It makes it look more expensive. And you get paid more if they think it's psychic. But this is a really remarkable thing. Let me take a peek at it. Not yet. You're not working hard enough. It's not my fault. It's yours. Oh, very good. I saw the effort going out. Let me take... What time does it now say, sir?
8:05.
5 minutes past 8, and only a moment ago it was 2 minutes past 9. A miracle, I think you'll agree. Well, that may have looked as if I was in touch with hidden forces. Not so. Any of you could do just as I did with a little practice. So beware when you meet people who say they have powers. So tonight, astrology. It's a very seductive idea. It would be wonderful to believe that everything from your bank balance to an international war was really influenced by the planets. My first guest is an astrologer whose work is read by millions of people in Britain every day. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jonathan Kaner. Tell me, Jonathan, who do you write for?
I write for Today newspaper in this country, Today newspaper, Woman magazine, Mirabella, and Living.
I have a question for you. You know, are we really supposed to believe that everything you write for, say, a Capricorn is going to happen to 1/12 of the total population of the world that next day?
Well, let me ask you something, James. You come from the other side of the Atlantic. Would you say that Canadians and Americans have different characteristics to each other?
Yes, they do.
So, up to a point, there are differences between Capricorns and Aquarians, and certain things I can say about them, but I would, as is obvious from what I've just asked you, say that there are also a lot of things you couldn't say just from that kind of information.
Well, how would you do a more accurate reading?
All right, well, to do that, you're going to need somebody's date of birth, their time of birth, and their place of birth, and then you're going to need to draw up a great big map of the sky, and by analyzing where all the different planetary positions are, you can start to say something that makes a lot more personal sense.
So you say that a reading of this kind would be accurate and individual enough for the person to recognize themselves?
I would hope so.
All right. Well, Jonathan has kindly agreed to put his talents to the test this evening. We have taken the birth date information from every person in the audience tonight, and before the show, we gave you the details of one person selected from that audience. So please give us your reading for that person.
Okay. Well, I don't know who I'm addressing here, but I know that the person who owns the horoscope that I've been looking at has a very unusual horoscope. This horoscope is unusual, and it suggests to me that you are a very extrovert person, unusual, larger than life, full of confidence, with a very zany sense of humor, and generally a kind of way of being different, eccentric, controversial. You will kind of enjoy the limelight that comes from when it's revealed that it's you. You won't feel too shy or ashamed of it. And one more thing I should also say, there's something about you which is rather professorial and intellectual, and it makes me think that we're dealing with someone who's had a well-trained mind, is very speedy and alert and quick-witted.
So we're looking for someone who's controversial and professorial. Now, let's see if he or she agrees, but first, let's see by a show of hands in the audience here, how many people in the audience think this reading sounds like theirs? Let's see a show of hands. Well, we've got, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, about 15, maybe a few more. Quite a few, actually. Now, let's meet our real subject of that reading. Please welcome Hugh Laurie. And Hugh is accompanied this evening by a gentleman he hardly knows, Stephen Fry. So tell us, Hugh, what did you make of that reading? Is it anything like you? I mean, does it apply to you?
I wouldn't say very much, no. I'm certainly not enjoying the limelight now. Although you may say, why did I come up? Well, curiosity, you know, but limelight, I wouldn't say, no. Extrovert, I don't think so. Professorial, I got the lowest possible degree at the university I went to.
Ah, but you did go to university.
Oh, that's right.
Well, that's a start.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
One for me.
You think you count that as one for you, do you?
Well, just a small one
you're
for
very
me,
generous
I
to
think,
yourself.
yeah.
I call that a draw, yeah, all right. What else was there?
Did I say you had a good sense of humour? I think I did.
Hands up in this audience who thinks they have not got a sense of humour.
Oh,
There you go. Everybody. It's one of the rules of the world that everybody believes themselves to have a great
yes,
sense of
but
humour.
I picked it out as being a strong point in a gentleman's horoscope.
It would have been a brilliant one of me, incidentally. That's the odd thing. People do regard me as professorial in some way or another. Hugh isn't at all. He's certainly not extrovert. And
Stupid. Stupid, in fact.
I wouldn't get together, but not in the least bit stupid. Very intelligent, but not in a professorial or academic kind of way. And certainly not competent. In fact, I seem to spend a good 90% of my life trying to make you more competent. He gets nervous and he despises it.
I think you do your friend a grave injustice. I've looked at his horoscope and I'm sure he's capable of far more than that.
Yeah, but I've looked at him, you see.
Well, Jonathan, it doesn't seem that Hugh and Stephen are entirely convinced by your reading. And even more interesting, many people in our audience tonight thought that it could be them as well. What explanation could there be for that, do you think?
Oh, a very simple one, that of course what we're testing here is my ability to communicate. And of course you must understand in the newspapers, I specialise in saying things that do apply to a lot of people at once.
Well, from my experience, readings in newspapers are very general, and perhaps that's why in America some of them now carry a health warning, which makes it clear they're for entertainment purposes only. Thank you very much, Jonathan, for taking part. Stephen, thank you. So much of the information we get from astrology is fairly general and subjective, yet increasingly business people consult astrologers for guidance in their financial affairs. In France, 10% of companies now take astrological advice on everything from takeovers to stock market flotations. To examine the use of astrology in the world of finance, we set up a test to pit the skills of a financial astrologer against those of a city analyst. We gave them 5 weeks to play the market and see who came out best. The referee was the marketing director of financial bookmakers IG Index. Please welcome Tracy Morshead. Tracy, was it an interesting period for you to referee the contest?
It was a very busy period. We'd had the outbreak of the Gulf War, the land war had started, peace broke out, we had interest rate cuts, and the whole of the competition ended on budget day. It was a very busy period, yes, indeed, a very interesting period.
And it was all fair and above board, of course.
Of course.
Indeed. Now let's meet our two traders, Roy Gillett and John Piper, and see how they fared. Well, first, Roy Gillett, who is an astrologer. Roy, how does astrology help you with this kind of work?
Well, I have a computer program that puts the astrological cycles on top of the price graphs, and I can see how the market turns when certain astrological moments occur.
And how long have you been doing this kind of thing?
Well, I've been an astrologer for a very long time, about 15 years, but I've only been studying the markets for about a year, and this is the first time I've tried any kind of real trading.
Well, now please welcome John Piper, who is a trader and a technical analyst. I believe you predicted that 1987 crash?
Yes, one of my indicators did give a fairly strong sell signal at that time.
Now, for our test, we gave each of you £10,000 to play the markets. Let's see how you both fared. John's results are in yellow and Roy's in purple. In the first week, you both got off to a bad start. John, you lost more than Roy. In week 2, Roy was still just ahead. By the end of week 3, John was beginning to pull ahead. His cash flow was looking healthier. As week 4 drew to a close, Roy was still in the red, but John had actually made more than £2,000 profit. Week 5 finished dramatically at close of markets on budget day. Roy took a huge gamble and lost more than £3,000, and the final result was that astrology lost £4,000, but technical analysis made a profit of almost £1,800. Well, John Piper, congratulations. What a pity it wasn't real money that you were playing with. What did you make of the test?
Well, in my business as a technical trader, we basically aim to train people to trade markets and make money in the markets. And it's the trading skill which is very important, I think, more than the analysis to an extent.
Thank you. Well then, Roy, bad luck. Or could it be that perhaps this financial astrology is not quite reliable?
Funnily enough, James, it's completely the opposite. If we sat down for half an hour and compared notes with what I wrote before this thing started, the predictions I made, with what I did, we'd see that all the astrological indications that I suggested worked well for me, and all the hunches I tried didn't.
It would appear to me that there are better ways to make your money grow than for relying on astrology. Thank you, John Piper and Roy Gillett, for agreeing to take part in our test. And Tracy, thank you very much for refereeing for us. Well, it's serious enough that big business is using the as-yet unproven claims of astrology to guide their affairs. But what about heads of state? You might have thought that court astrologers were a thing of the past. Not so. As recently as 1988, the world learned that the movements of President Reagan were being influenced by an astrologer who was advising his wife. Nancy Reagan revealed in her autobiography that she had come to rely on the guidance of Joan Quigley, an astrologer from San Francisco. As the White House Chief of Staff said, it was disturbing to think that the president's schedule was in the hands of an unknown woman in San Francisco who believes that she can read the secrets of the future in the movements of the stars.
I did do a chart for President Reagan to declare that he was running for a second term. I've told her when it was unsafe to fly and things like that.
How scientific is astrology? My next guest is an astrologer and scientist who believes that astrology should be recognized once more as a serious academic subject. Please welcome Tad Mann.
The astrological horoscope is a map, a symbolic representation of your lifetime from conception to death. Astrology is a language for describing a perceptive view of your life, its events and relationships, and your underlying psychology. But how does astrology work? The sun moves through space at thousands of kilometers per day, and the paths of the planets make a spiraling pattern around the central filament of the sun. The spiraling form of the solar system is similar in structure to the genetic molecule DNA. Through the phenomenon of resonance, information is transmitted to every being on Earth. The cylinder of life allows the astrologer to describe a person's development through gestation, childhood, and maturity. The signs of the zodiac describe the qualities and character of this process. Astrology provides a wonderful tool for understanding why we do what we do and how we can begin to accept ourselves in this troubled world.
Well, that's very interesting. They tell me you can give exact dates that people can relate to?
Yes, if the birth time is accurate, I can date events to within a month throughout the course of an individual's lifetime.
Well, Tad agreed to do this test with us. At your suggestion, we gave you birth times and details of two people whose identities are unknown to you at this point. From these, you told us you could give us readings, which would stress the important dates in the lives of each of these mystery people. Would you please give us a summary of your readings for each of these folks?
For the first, this is a horoscope for a Pisces with a Cancer moon on the ascendant in Cancer also. 1969 was a difficult and uncertain time, which could have seen a separation of some kind. In 1976, you came into contact with someone intensely powerful who didn't quite live up to your expectations. But 1989 was perhaps the most traumatic period in your adult life. It may have been the end of a long-standing relationship, but at the same time, some new and positive elements started to appear in your life, which may still be in operation now.
So that's the first one?
That's the first one.
And was there a second one?
This reading is for a Taurian with Libra ascending and Sagittarius moon. You're well-balanced and diplomatic as long as you get your own way. November 79 was extremely significant and represents a relationship. However, it's August 1990 that brings a sudden skyrocketing change with success and possible awards.
That's number two.
That's number two.
Well, now please welcome the two subjects of these readings, Jilly Cooper and Nina Mishko. First, Julie, would you tell us how accurate and meaningful Tad's reading, and in particular the dates, were for you?
69 was good because, except it was because I got my break on the Sunday Times, and so that was the first thing that happened to me. Oh, I know. I was interviewing something very famous happened to me in the 19th, and I interviewed Mrs. Thatcher. But you said in your thing, I met a very powerful man.
Oh, right. Well, by extension.
So that was pretty good.
Half correct.
And then 79 was...
79 was a major change in appearance. Also, you began new and strong relationships. That was 1970.
No, I behaved myself there, yeah.
Well, Nina, tell me how accurate was yours.
I have to say, I was staggered by how accurate he was with the general sweep of my life and a lot of the emotions in it. For instance, you said 79 was a very significant year for me, and there was a big relationship. And this may sound ludicrous or pathetic or self-indulgent, but in May of 79, I had a major nervous breakdown, and I went to a therapist, and I went to a therapist thereafter for 7 years, and that was the most significant relationship I had in my adult life, really. Also, August of 90, I didn't get major public acclaim, but you said there was an absolutely skyrocketing change in my life. And it's true, I met a man, I fell deeply in love with him, I'm still in love with him. He's changed my life absolutely radically, and it was August of 1990.
You know, what I was surprised about, Tad, is that as I was reading, and I did read the transcripts this afternoon, I read number 1, and only number 1. And I found that I could relate very closely to it, too. And I think that perhaps if we were to pass it around in the audience, if you search hard enough, you'll come up with some sort of correlation. I'd like to thank you very much for doing this test for us. And thanks also to Julie and Nina. Now I'd like to ask the opinions of some of our guests in the audience.
I think it's a load of rubbish. I have to admit that what I find primarily wrong with it is just basically composed of a series of chance correlation. There is absolutely no basis whatsoever to your theory of resonance. There is no proven knowledge of it whatsoever in known science. And frankly, what I think is taking place here is that you're using an ancient cosmology. I don't think that there's any scientific basis for astrology whatsoever.
And this is where I do agree with Tad Mann, that resonance can exist between the magnetic field of the sun and the gravitational tug of the planets. Now, the activity of the sun is transmitted to the Earth via the solar wind, and there is a great deal of evidence that magnetic activity of the Earth's magnetic field can affect a whole wide variety of organisms on the surface of the Earth.
I think it's an insult to the human spirit, this specious bullshit. And I think people should be angry about it. I think it is really degrading. I think it's largely exploitative. It's not perhaps as bad as spiritualist mediums, but it covers the same ground of the poor, bewildered people who are told by the astrologer that somehow they're important and extraordinary because the whole universe was poised in a unique state just at the moment of their birth. 20 years ago, Crick and Watson discovered the double helix that this man has been going on about. They won the Nobel Prize for it, and they formed the basis of the science of genetics. Oh, we'll have that too. We'll add that into our specious, semi-pseudo-scientific drivel. And I think people should be angry about it because it's nonsense.
Tell us, Doctor, in your opinion, is astrology science or superstition?
It is science because it's open to investigation and evaluation. Some astrologers have been brave enough to provide evidence for their claims. So my task has been to look through this evidence and evaluate where they've gone wrong if the skeptics are to be believed. With some notable exceptions, sadly I found in most cases they had made mistakes and got it wrong. But I was left with some very convincing evidence.
The scientific community does not believe it. And the reasons they do not is that it smacks of mysticism, magic, and hocus pocus. My regret is that there's so many intelligent, able people wasting their time and, might I say, taking other people's money in this hopeless cause.
Thank you all very much for your contributions. One of the most popular claims for astrology is that it can guide you through your love life. Every day, hundreds of copies of books on this aspect of astrology alone are sold. Please welcome my final guest, the author of books such as Love Lives and the Seductive Art of Astrology, Carol Golder. Carol, are some pairs of star signs more compatible than others?
Yes, I think they definitely are, even in sun sign astrology, which in fact is all we've got time to do here tonight. But yes, they are.
Carol has kindly agreed to do a demonstration for us tonight. We scoured the countryside to find 12 blissfully married couples, and despite the odds, we found them, and here they are. Well, what we have here is one man from each of the 12 astrological signs, accompanied by his better half. Now, gentlemen, please move to your star signs, taking your wives with you. So, Carol, we've given you the zodiac signs for all of the wives. What have you done with this information?
Well, I think I've probably broken up a few happy relationships, actually, without meaning to, but who knows? We're soon going to discover.
I see. So you've read the signs and you've figured out who they should be compatible with.
I've done a little generalization on the signs, and as I said before, some signs are more compatible than others.
So would all of the ladies now please move to the astrological sign that Carol says they should be romantically compatible with. Ladies? Oh, my goodness. Will you look at this? I don't know what the charm is this gentleman has, but he's attracted 3 wives. And, gee, there's one gentleman over here, and another one here, and another one here. Well, thanks to all. Carol, what do you think of that demonstration?
Well, I think it proves the point that a lot of people can get on with people that aren't necessarily right for them.
Tell me, does this demonstrate the basic principles of the kind of thing you do?
No, of course not. I will do a date, time, and place of birth of somebody, and then I will see how their planetary aspects correspond to their proposed partner. No matter what sign you are, you really ought to be able to get on with them.
Well, Carol, I hope that you make a lot of people very happy. And thank you very much for coming tonight. Astrology is controversial. It's everywhere. But I'm still waiting for the proof. You've seen the evidence. Now you make up your own minds. I'm James Randi. Good night.